Hi, this is Talie Warulkar, the anxiety coach. I am joined here today with Melissa Goldwag to talk about her anxiety journey as part of a series of interviews that I am doing in order to take the shame lid off of anxiety. Um, Today, Melissa is joining us to talk about her anxiety journey surrounding transportation in terms of getting in cars and on buses. Hi, Melissa. Thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Talie. I'm Melissa Goldwag. I married and a mom of four kids, ages 10 to 19, and I live in Modi'in, Israel. I'm originally from New York, and I moved to Israel 25 years ago. I'm the owner and CEO, or co-owner and co-CEO with my husband of Pack for Camp and Pack for Israel, which are two e-commerce stores. And I work from home in general, and I'm out a bit of the time.
Thank you. So tell us about the anxiety surrounding transportation. Can you talk to us a bit about that?
Sure. So this is something that used to go on. I'm happy to say the ending is a happy ending for the most part. But as long as I can remember, whenever I needed to get into the car as a child, as a teenager, I always felt like I needed to use the bathroom over and over and over again before I would leave my house. Because if I didn't, then what if I would need to use the bathroom while I was in the car? Which to me was one of the most embarrassing things as a child that could ever happen to me, especially if I wasn't just with my family, but with other people. And that's something that I don't know when it started. It kind of always was part of me. I was the person who had stomach aches all the time. I was even proud of it. It was kind of like my unique part was, oh, I have 25 different kinds of stomach aches. I have this kind, I have that kind, I have a third kind. And it was something I like talked about proudly. But I don't think I had any idea for many, many years that there was something called anxiety. And that's what I had. I didn't have a stomach ache or 25 different kinds of stomach aches.
What's your earliest memory of getting in a car and feeling really anxious?
So this isn't my earliest memory, but it's a very dominant memory. And it actually wasn't even in a car, but it kind of like affected me very much.
What was it in?
After it was walking, actually. I was in Israel after high school before I lived here for a year. And I went walking with one of my roommates to a different neighborhood. And when we were going shopping for food. And when we got to the store was closed.
Hmm.
And I felt like I needed to use the bathroom, but the store was closed. So I certainly couldn't go in the store. So she said, "Oh, it's okay. Why don't we start walking home?" And all of a sudden, I felt this urgency, like if I don't find a toilet this second, I don't, I'm just going to dirty myself and make a fool of myself. And we started knocking on doors. And some nice woman opened her house and she said, "Oh, sure, girls, come in. You can use my
Israel.
toilet."
Yeah.
And and I went in and I went to the bathroom and everything was fine. And I came out. We must have sat there for another 20 minutes just so I could kind of calm down. What again, what I know today was some sort of panic attack or anxiety, calm down
How
so
old were
that I
you
could.
at this stage?
I was 16.
Okay, so still young.
Um, and then we walked the rest of the way home. Of course, my scaredness that would become a joke came true, but in kind of I made it a funny joke. Like, my friend who was with me was like, "Oh, ha, ha, that was the funniest thing that ever happened." And look at that Israeli experience that we had, that we knocked on doors and someone opened the door and she wrote me a card with a picture of a toilet. No, but you're saying, "Oh, but like at the time, I didn't realize that I was like embarrassed because it was a funny joke." And then it started affecting me more and more because it really was my nightmare come true. Was that, oh no, what if I'm somewhere like in a car or on a bus or walking in the street and I need a bathroom and there is no bathroom? What happens next? And I think that that's where my thoughts really started getting into this kind of loop where I would say, well, I don't want to go somewhere because what if?
Okay, so take us forward, okay? After that happened, how did it affect your life?
So later on, I went back to the States at the end of that year, and I went off to college. And the way it affected me was that pretty much, I don't know if it's all the time, but often enough, I started kind of being scared to leave the house to go on the unknown. So I didn't like to go on the subway. I was living in Manhattan at the time, and I didn't want to go on the subway because what if I needed the toilet while I was on the subway? Or I didn't want to take I didn't want to take a bus for the same reason. Though like long distance buses in the States, at least at the time, had a toilet on it.
Toilet.
So if I went on that bus, I was fine. Or if I went on the train, I was fine. But also just getting in the car with somebody else, it was, it would become this kind of like, okay, I'm going to go one more time, one more time. How many times can you go? Because you don't really need to go.
Did it include also short distances? Like let's say if it was a 10-minute car ride.
Yes, it didn't necessarily matter. The preparation for getting in the car would take much longer than the car ride a lot of the times. Like I'd have to be up hours before to kind of calm myself down and be okay with it. And it even happened, it would happen more when it was not my family, but it even started happening with my family, though they knew and they were understanding. And they said, my family at the time is my parents and my brothers and sisters. And they were fine. It was kind of like an inside joke at some point that like, did you use the bathroom? Are you ready? Are you going back in again? But I can tell you an incident that happened a few years later where I was going to an internship every day. I was in social work school, and
How old
I
were
had to
you?
take the bus 21, 22, and
Okay.
I would get on the bus every day from West Hempstead, where I lived, to go to Queens, and the bus ride was about a half an hour. And I'd get on the bus, and usually I was fine. And there were days, and I remember a specific one where I got on the bus. I already was feeling like very nervous and anxious. And I got off the bus three stops later, and I walked home, and it was far. Like I wasn't close to home anymore. And I walked all the way home because being in control of the situation, deciding to walk, even, it took away any of those physical symptoms of, oh my gosh, I need this bathroom right now, because if I don't find it, I don't know what's going to happen.
Did you find that it affected your life in terms of socializing, in terms of a job, career, building your life outside?
So
Like,
socially,
did you ever find that like you wouldn't leave the house as a result of it?
it became a chore to leave the house. I wouldn't say I didn't, I tried not to let it hold me back because I wanted to go to my internship every day because in order to graduate, I needed to be there. But that day, for example, I didn't get there. I called in sick. It affected me a lot more socially. If I would go out on a date or if I was going out with friends and we were all going in the same car, we weren't just meeting there, let's say. It was like, as you said, a short drive could even be 2 minutes. But if it was so much effort to get myself in that car to go anywhere.
And did you find your friends were understanding?
Yeah. Yeah. We
That
didn't really
support.
know.
That's why support
Yes,
is
they
really
were
important.
fine. I mean, they thought it was crazy, but we were all crazy. So everybody had their thing. And I think it was like, so my thing was a different thing, but everybody had a something. Um, but nobody knew what it was. I didn't know what it was. I mean, I even went to doctors to find out what was wrong with my stomach, and was at some point diagnosed with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. And I remember coming home and saying, I don't think I have that. I think that's what they tell you you have when they don't know what you
They don't know
have.
what to give you, yeah.
And again, this is the 90s, so it's a while ago. It's not, I'd hope that doesn't happen today. But then there wasn't, this awareness of any sort of mental side of things,
Yeah, yeah.
psychological side. Well, maybe this is something to do not with your stomach. That never came up, not from a doctor and not from my parents. And my parents took me I said, I need to see a gastro. They took me to the gastro. There was never like, you know, uh, something that was we're not going to take you. They wanted to help me get better, but nobody really knew. I didn't know what it was.
When did you realize that this is what it was?
So when I was about 21 or so, that kind of the same time that incident happened, I saw my local library had this event where a psychologist was coming to talk about anxiety and panic. And I thought, oh, that looks interesting. I'm studying social work, so let me go and just like hear what she has to
How old
say.
were you?
21. And I went there and I don't remember exactly what she said, but I realized that the story she was telling was about me. And she was giving this kind of general lecture, but I was, but she was also looking for obviously clients and that sort of thing to come to her practice. And I thought, wow, this person understands what I'm going through. She's telling me what's happening to me, and I didn't even realize what I was coming to. And I spoke to her after she gave the lecture, and I said, it sounds like you might be able to help me. And she said, sure, why don't you come in? And I remember it was very expensive for me, and I was embarrassed to tell my parents that I was going to go to a psychologist like that. That was crazy then. And my parents, to this day, they were not into any sort of mental health support. There was a big stigma about going to a psychologist, or I felt like there was, but I felt like I had to do something. And I started seeing her. She actually saw me on a sliding scale because I was a student. And I think eventually my parents' insurance did cover part of it. So they
Okay.
took
So you
the
ended up
money that I
you ended up
made.
telling your parents?
I did tell my parents because I was disappearing with their car, once a week, I think maybe even twice a week at some point.
And how did she help you?
So she was working with CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. So a lot of it was about identifying what was going to happen before it happened. And with me, it was very predictable. It was like, you're going to get on the bus and you're going to be ABC before you get on the bus, and then DEF when you get on the bus. And I remember I had this workbook that I was supposed to like do homework in every day to identify the thoughts that were coming before, and then when you start having the thoughts, to stop the thoughts, and distract them, go to a different direction. One of the things she had me set up for myself was a distraction kit. So if I was on the bus, and I needed to, I was starting to feel like my heart was pounding and my stomach was saying, I need the bathroom, even though I really
Yeah.
didn't need it. I had this very cute packet that I had made up together with her, which had a crossword puzzle because I love doing crossword puzzles. And so, and a pen in there. So I would never, I'd have it in every bag that I went. I had this cute little Ziploc crossword puzzle, pen, and tissues. And the tissues were in case of emergency, like, you know what, you really need the toilet, or you have nothing, you're gonna, mess up your clothes. You just have those,
Yes.
tissues with you. And that made me, just having it made me feel a lot more confident because I was prepared. So even if my worst nightmare came true, I was prepared. And that was very helpful at the time.
Um, did you find that distracting yourself worked? Like, did you find that she helped you and the method that she gave you helped you?
She did to a certain extent.
Okay.
Um, it worked. It didn't make the panic and the anxiety go away, but it gave me a way to control it.
Okay.
So I was still having these kind of ceremonial rites before I was leaving the house. But once I got on that transportation, I did feel very confident with my little baggie there, of things I could do. Sometimes I actually did the crossword puzzle for fun because I enjoyed them. But I will just say an anecdote that at the time, there was no internet, or it wasn't easily accessible. So in order to get old New York Times crossword puzzles, I went into the microfiche section of my university, and I went through old papers and just
So
went to the
funny.
section, and I paid to print out those pages off the newspaper. Um, so, it was very much a
This is you were
different,
21 still, right?
yeah,
Doing your
yeah,
internship. Okay.
yes.
Um, so moving forward, because you said that you don't have this problem anymore. So what helped you came to this solution?
Okay, so it kept happening. It happened less, but it kept happening. But there were periods where I felt like I was more in control, and periods where I was less in control. And then I made Aliyah.
How old are you?
Oh, I was 23. By the way, the planes were like the worst of everything. So if buses were bad,
Really?
and and cars were bad, planes were impossible. I started feeling like I was stuck no matter if like I had to have the aisle seat or else I was stuck, and I didn't want to bother these people. I would like be doing these calculations about how many times can I bother the people on the aisle to ask
Wow.
them to go out and come back without looking like an idiot? These are my calculations in my head. How many times can I ask people to
That's
stop the
pretty
car?
common calculation in terms of like being able to get out of your seats.
Right, but not, but mine wasn't a healthy one. You know what I mean? It was like
Right.
most people feel like, okay, well, I'm on a 12-hour flight to Israel. So once an hour, once every 2 hours, and that's all they
Yeah.
need. But I would feel like I needed it the whole time. So I'd be pushing off this urge to go to the toilet that I didn't even necessarily really need. It was just a very terrible cycle. And I remember people saying to me, like, are you okay? Like, you keep going to the bathroom. And it was almost like this bad cycle that was reinforcing itself. But anyway, so I got to
You're
Israel,
saying that
and
the more you went, the more you felt you needed to go. And the more
yes,
people that
and
made the
also when
comment.
people would comment, like, and they were kind, they weren't mean
Yeah.
comments. People, weren't like mean about it. And then, I'd be like, oh, exactly. And now it was almost like this negative attention that kept reinforcing the behavior. And it was terrible. It was awful. It would happen to me even on Shabbat meals. It happened to me on a date once, like where I'd be like, how many times can you go to the bathroom during a Shabbat meal? Or on a date, because I'd feel like I needed to go. And worse than that, when I'd go to the bathroom, I needed to go, of course. So the anxiety created like this real need. So you could always get something out. And so, you know, so I came to Israel. And as I said, there were up periods and down periods. When I got my own car about a year later, when I was 24, like that helped me a lot. But
In
I didn't want
Israel,
to
you're
take,
saying.
yeah, but I didn't want to take passengers because then I had the issues again. It was like if I'm by myself in my car, I'm in full control. I mean, it's a lot about control. So eventually, fast forward, I tried different people, different things. I was in another type of therapy later on, EMDR, which
Mm,
helped me a lot. It was about you held things in different hands, and it was something about your right half of your brain and your left half of
yeah,
your brain, and
yeah.
that helped a lot. Like that was a coping mechanism that
Did
worked
they
for
ever
me.
get to the root of the problem? Like,
No,
no.
no. We did get to an accident I had, like a bathroom accident when I was about 5 or 6,
I was
um,
thinking this.
which
Yeah.
I kind of got myself dirty when we were walking to my cousin's house. And my mom didn't realize, like when I said I needed the bathroom, like that didn't mean like, let's wait another 10 minutes till we got there. And my therapist actually had me call my cousins to ask them if they remembered, and their mother, and none of them had any recollection. And of course, I remember details like what my
Of
underwear looked
course.
like and what, the flowers were on the underwear, but they had absolutely no recall of this situation. So that actually helped a lot. That kind of realizing like, okay, well, nobody thinks I'm nuts except for me. Like no one, like it was kind of like, it's
Yeah.
all about me.
Melissa, do you
Um,
think that that was the original trigger for all of this?
it's possible. It's possible. I
Do you have
don't
another
know.
memory of like, let's say from that time onwards, but at a young stage of your life, of feeling that anxiety, of feeling anxious getting into the car? Let's say when you were 8, 9, 10. Do you have
No,
any recollection, any memory?
nothing, nothing. I don't remember anything. I remember taking the bus to school every day, also at that age, without it, not at 6, but at 7, 8, 9, 10, through high school with no issues. No issues. It came out, it really did come out later. Um,
Around what age approximately? I mean, you mentioned
I'm
16.
saying that 16, I think, was around the age, like when I started having these symptoms.
And when did your
Um,
stomach ache start?
Around then, 15, 16. I also did find out I was lactose intolerant
Ah,
at some point. I was like diagnosed finally at 23, but from 17, I haven't really been eating dairy. Like I knew that was a stressor, but I don't think that was the cause. Um, but but yeah, I think it's all connected. I mean,
what eventually healed you?
so I wouldn't say I'm
You,
healed. So let me just say
Okay.
that now. I don't know if I'll ever be 100% healed, but I started a new job, I would say about 14, 15 years ago now. So when I was in my early 30s, 33 or so. And I had like the worst first day because I thought I needed the bathroom the entire day. And I went home crying, and it was a high level position. It was like my first kind of like step up in the world, building a research department at the Road Safety Authority. And I could barely get in the car and go home because I didn't know how I was going to get home the 40 minutes and also get back in time to pick up my daughter. And I said to myself, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it. I can't
This
feel
was your
like this.
first day?
That was my first day. And I said, and I can't be stressed when I need to pick up a child at GAN or at school at 4 o'clock on the dot. Like I can't be late. There's no movement. And I also had to be at work. And I said, and I have this, more senior position than I'd ever have before. And I need to be functioning. I can't have these ups and downs and not know when it's going to hit me. Even though I had some control over it, but and I went to my family doctor and I just cried my eyes out. And I said, I don't know what to do. I said, I've tried this and I've tried that and I've tried that and I've tried this. And he said, have you tried medication? And I said, no, I don't think it's going to work. Like, how would that work? I've tried everything. He said, why don't we give it a try? He said, I can give you a referral to a psychiatrist. She'll see you within the week and you can be on your road to feeling good. So I said,
Okay.
okay, okay, like me, a psychiatrist, my parents don't even like a therapist, right? Like what, I don't do that. We don't do that. I can't tell anybody. This is the worst. But I was feeling so horrible that I didn't have a choice. I felt like I didn't have a choice, that everything else I had learned, I had taught myself, wasn't working, just wasn't working. And I don't remember how long it took me till I saw that psychiatrist, maybe a week or two, and she put me on a medication.
Can you
And
share with us the
within,
name of it?
well, I can tell you what I'm on today because it changed a little bit. It's
Okay.
Cipralex.
Yeah.
Um,
Standard, yeah.
and I don't know the dosage at this point. I would have to go look. But she put me on that, and within a week or 10 days, all of a sudden, I wasn't having those anxiety thoughts anymore. I wasn't thinking, what if this and what if that and what if whatever. I just kind of, my whole uptightness and my, thinking about that just kind of notched down. And and that's when I started feeling better. That was when I,
And this is
was
from your
like,
early 30s.
this is my early 30s, like, oh wow. And it was happening getting in the car with my family, with my husband and my kids also. One more time back in the bathroom, one more time back in the bathroom in the house. Like we locked up, we're on the way out. No, one more time. Oh, let's stop at a gas station. And all of a sudden it was like this relief where, the levels went from like up here. And again, it wasn't all the time, but when it happened, it was like
It was.
sky high to like, I'm breathing, I'm living, I can get in the car without thinking much, I don't, I still think, but it wasn't like, I was like, oh, you go to the bathroom before you leave the house and then you go leave the house like that. That's it. You don't have to go back. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to stop on the way. And so my last 13 or 14 years have been medicated. And, I have my thoughts about the pluses and minuses of being on medication, and it has its side effects. But I feel much better. I feel much better when I do have thoughts, and I do. That's why I said I'm not healed. Sometimes I'm like, something nerve-wracking will happen, or, I said at the beginning, I work from home, so I don't really go anywhere. It suits me very perfectly. I don't take buses and I don't take trains and I don't drive my car. So, that kind of helped itself that way as well. But yesterday, for example, I had to take my son somewhere and he had to be there at 8:30 in the morning in a different city. And all of a sudden I didn't have the thoughts, like I don't have the whole workup, but my body still wanted to go
Body's
use.
response.
Yeah.
Right.
So at this point, I just say, oh, okay, you need to use the bathroom. Use the bathroom. You're allowed. But the problem has always been that something that's natural and normal, this body function, to me became the enemy. And so it's like, I can't ever have a stomach ache because then it sets me back a few steps. If I like have some sort of like diarrhea or, something that's like normal, a stomach bug, just ate something wrong, it sets me back a few steps because it's like, well, what if that happens again tomorrow? And what
Do you
about the
still
next
feel like
day?
it's the like this normal body function? Do you still feel like it's a bit of an enemy in any?
I do. I do feel that.
Okay.
Like if someone else in the family has like a stomach bug, I stay so far away from them because I don't want that stomach bug because I don't want what comes after it, which is not as horrible as it was, not even close. But just that feeling for a day or two of like, what if that happens again in a place where I can't, I don't, that sort of thing. So it's really it's there, it's in the background. It's not something I think about every day at all. I don't think about it. I
Making it
don't.
your friend, is it something that you would want to do?
What does that mean?
As opposed to seeing it as an enemy, would you want to reframe your mind to see it as a friend? Because you yourself said using your logical brain, it's like a normal function.
So
It's a
I'm
body
able to
function.
reframe it in a certain way today. Like I as I said, like I've come a very long way. So, it is really just talking to myself and saying, this is normal. Probably ate something wrong. It's your way of getting your body to get rid of whatever it is you need.
Yeah.
Um, but it also helps that I don't go out as much as I used to. I'm not going to an office every day, and I think maybe that I ended up doing what I'm doing and where I'm doing it because that's how my life is on an even keel, and that's what's good for me. So I don't, and when I do, I can take public transportation now. I can get on the bus. I try not to because I'd rather drive or I'd rather take the train today. So if I have to go to Tel Aviv, I'll generally take the train, but if the train times don't work, I can get on a bus. It does not cause me crazy anxiety. I can, sometimes you find yourself in a situation where, somebody's like, oh, come with me. We're just going to go here, get in the car. I can do that. It doesn't, to me, it's more, it
So had
happens more often if I have more time to plan it. It's like if it's on the spur of the moment, so I'm fine. But if, I know in 2 weeks we're going to go somewhere and we're all on a bus together and it's some fuel that I still have trouble with.
okay. What are you doing today to help yourself? Do you have any techniques, tools? You already mentioned that you're on medication.
Right. So that's the biggest one. I remember all my tools that I've learned in my life. Like I didn't forget any of them. If they help me, I've got my toolbox to pull out. I do know I avoid certain things, but I've come to be okay with that. If in my 20s it was, I don't have a car, so if I have to go somewhere or that, I try not to have things that I have to be somewhere with a lot of pressure early in the morning because I know that's a trigger for me, the early in the morning thing. Um, stuff like that. And I don't, there are other things I want to do or I could do, but I haven't gotten there yet. For example, I'd like to be exercising more because exercise I know it's been research has proven that it can lower your anxiety.
A
It's
lot
something in my
help.
head, it's something in my mind to do. Um, I have lots of excuses like anybody does when you
Can we pin you
procrastinate.
down? Can we pin you down? Gonna pin
But
you
yeah,
down.
but it is something that I do want to start because I feel like anyway,
Okay.
overall, my
Melissa,
health.
when are you going to start? When are you going to
Talia,
start?
I'm not going to answer that question because I don't want to commit.
What's stopping you from committing?
Oh, I don't really want to do it. I know I should, but I don't really want to.
Is there an exercise that you enjoy doing that you can do in your own time, own space?
So that's one of my excuses is that I haven't found that yet. I've tried lots of different things over the
Okay.
years. Something, we can talk about more, but right now I'm not going to commit
Not
because
gonna commit. Okay.
I just can't do that. I do feel like, I'm very glad to be here and talking to you because first of all, it's making me feel better to get it out, to say it out loud and to tell people because I'm not ashamed of it. And I really think people should seek help for their issues, whatever it may be. And it's not it today is so different than it was in
Yeah.
1991 when I graduated high school. I mean, people that I know that are younger than I am are always like, oh, I got a therapist appointment. Oh, this,
Different
like
generation. Yeah, completely.
no big deal. And no one's saying, oh, why are you going to the therapist? It's kind of like everybody goes to the therapist. So like, and I'm not seeing anyone today. I'm not in therapy right now. I haven't been for a bunch of years, not for this. But I also don't feel like I need it right now. If I did, I would go
So
right
you,
back to it.
that's very healthy, recognizing that you
Yeah.
need help for something and going out and doing it.
Hmm.
Melissa, last question, okay? Is there a message that you have for anybody that's watching this right now?
Yes. So I think that one of the biggest things that I learned over time is that you're not alone.
Yeah.
So many people, so many women especially, have different levels of anxiety dealing with different things. I mean, mine, I always thought was particularly embarrassing because it had to do with bathrooms. Bathrooms are a very embarrassing topic. Um, and I thought I was the only one in the world that had an anxiety around a bathroom. And the more I talk about it, I don't talk about it all the time. It's not in all my conversations. I meet more people that have anxiety around the bathroom. And even in the same ways, even about getting on buses. I had a coworker he had the exact same thing and he didn't want to take medicine. And I kept trying to encourage him. I said, everything else isn't working for you, just like it didn't work for me. I don't know what happened. I don't work with him anymore, but I hope he took care of himself because, he actually said that talking to me made him feel worse. It made him more anxious that he knew there was someone else, but to me, it made me feel better. So if we were on a work thing on the bus together, we're both doing this EMDR thing, like in across the row from each other. To me, it was comforting to know that other people felt similarly to the way I do. And that's really my message is that whatever it is, it's not just there's nothing new in this world. It's not just you. There's lots and lots of people who are feeling it. And the stigma is really, it's in our minds at this point. It's much less out there of like, oh, you went to a therapist or you take medicine for this or all these sorts of things. It's a different world than I grew up in
Very
at least.
different world. It's a very, very different world.
And
I
I think
think
that, yeah,
today's is recognition even that there's something called anxiety, you
yeah,
know, which makes a
yeah.
massive, massive difference. And there's absolutely no shame in taking medication. I've been on Serenada in the past, previously. I've seen psychologists, therapists, whatever, different kinds. It's very, very normal, thank God, you know. Melissa, thank you so much. Really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you,
If
Talie.
you have anxiety affecting you in some way in your life and you are willing to be interviewed and share with us your journey, then please be in touch with me. The details will be at the end of this video. Thank you very much.